I want to thank you for allowing me to come here and talk this morning about Hannah's Hope. I especially want to thank the elders, the leaders of the congregation here, and the preacher for giving me this time to stand up here and talk to you a little bit about the work in Cambodia. The congregation here has taken on to helping the children of Hannah's Hope, and for this they are extremely grateful. You know, in James 1, verse 27, it says, "The pure and undefiled religion before God is this, to take care of the fatherless and the widows." That's what we're striving to do in Cambodia. And hopefully, as we go through our presentation here, that will show. When you leave here this morning, there's going to be some brochures on the table in the back that I'm going to leave for you. There is one mistake in the brochures. The website address is incorrect. Tammy can give you the correct website address. She takes care of our website, does a great job with it, so she knows better than me what that website address is, so you can get that from her. We do an annual banquet for Hannah's Hope each year. As you can see, our first slide says, "Welcome to the 8th annual banquet." Well, our 8th annual banquet this year was postponed, as many things were this year because of a virus. So we did not have our banquet. And this is one of the ways that I use to give an update to our supporters, to our board members, to our people at different congregations that help us out. And the banquet is the way I update them. So the virus kind of put us behind this year, but luckily y'all have given me the opportunity to do this, so I can send this message back to them. As you look at the slides, you'll notice a couple of things right off the bat. You'll notice as you look at these children of Cambodia, you'll see their smiles. Great smiles. When we first started the home 10 years ago, it is interesting to see the pictures of the children we brought in initially. You didn't see the smiles. You saw a frown, a face where they were not happy, discontentment. But today you see this. Every child you look at, you'll see a smile, which it's heartwarming to us to realize that, you know, something's going on and we're doing something that's working, and something is going on. So the question is, why did we end up in Cambodia? As Doug mentioned, Danielle and I adopted 2 little girls from Cambodia. Our first trip over there was in 2001 when we adopted Rhea. Rhea is actually our youngest daughter. She was 9 months old when we adopted her. Then we went back a year later and adopted Naveen. Naveen's actually 2 years older than Rhea. She was 4 and a half when we adopted her. So that's kind of what started there. After that started, then there was information about Cambodia that we learned that kept drawing us back. Cambodia, as you can see on the screen here, Cambodia is a very poor country. Buddhism is their main religion. There's really no social support system from the government, so therefore there's a lot of street children. And so many of the people there have never even heard about Jesus Christ. Our home is located in a town called Siem Reap, Cambodia, and if you can see the map in the bottom right corner of that map, the orange section is Cambodia. Cambodia is, on the east side of Cambodia is Vietnam, on the west side is Thailand, on the north side is Laos. So it's wedged right there between those 3 countries. Siem Reap, our location for Hannah's Hope, is, you see the lake, the little blue area right in the middle, that's a lake called the Tonle Sap. Siem Reap is right on the northern end of that lake. We specifically located in Siem Reap for economics. Siem Reap is the location for what's known as the Angkor Wat temple system. Being that all the temples were located there, that brings in one thing. It brings in tourists. Bringing in tourists brings in money, which brings in businesses, which brings in jobs. And we were looking for an area that once our children were raised, that they would have an opportunity to get jobs, to work, being a poor country. So that's why we ended up in Siem Reap and looking for the future for the children. Where did we come up with the name Hannah's Hope? Everybody knows Hannah from the Bible. So the name Hannah's Hope comes from a beautiful and the moving story that we find in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 1 through 28. Hannah had a desire for a child. Fervently she prayed for that child. And she was very consistent with her prayers. And she made a great promise to God. If you'll give me a child, I will then give that child back. I will give the child back to God for the rest of their lives. So we see that in 1 Samuel 1 and 11 where she made this vow to give her child back to God. God granted her wish. God gave her Samuel. God gave her Samuel. And we know that Samuel was then, in his early years, he was taken back to the temple and given to the priest to work for God. And we all know that Samuel ended up to be one of the great prophets of the Old Testament. So that was kind of the inspiration for the name, because our hope is with our children that they will spend their life working for God. The little boy that was in that is a little boy named Joseph. I'll tell you some of their names as we go along. I told you that one because it's an American name. Some of these names are hard to pronounce. Okay, go ahead. So our goals and our purposes. Hannah's Hope Children's Home, our goal is to provide a safe environment to the orphaned and the abandoned children in the country of Cambodia. The purpose is to promote the physical, emotional, and spiritual and the educational well-being of these orphaned and abandoned children. Furthermore, the goal is to support the development of these children into Christian adults who will contribute to and be leaders in the communities in which they reside. Often we're asked, well, what about adoption? Do y'all ever think about taking these young children and adopting them out? Well, no, we really don't. And there's several reasons we don't. And I'll address that because I'm usually asked that question. International adoption out of Cambodia is shut down for the most part. Shut down when we adopted Navin out of there in 2002. She was one of the last children that came out of that country to come to America. And there was some political reasons as behind many things in this world that it was shut down. They can adopt into some other countries, but it is totally shut down for America, and it's been shut down ever since. But our goal, as I said, is to raise children to become Christians in Cambodia and to influence Cambodia. The little boy right here, his name is David. We gave him that name. A little bit about this young man. As you can see, he's got a smile on his face and looks really good and healthy. We adopted him. We picked him up at 6 weeks of age. He was living in a hut in the mountains right along the Thai border. And at 6 weeks of age, his mother was, father didn't exist. As far as we know, we didn't know where he was. The mother had bad health. She was in very poor condition. She had no job. She had no money. She could not feed him. So at 6 weeks of age, this little boy weighed 2 pounds. Not very healthy, but we picked him up, carried him immediately to the hospital, started getting him nutrition, and you can see he's doing tremendous today. And that's a very good story from one of the children we have. Okay. All right, our staff. This is a picture of our staff. So you can see we've got a lot of staff. The country of Cambodia has certain restrictions as to how many staff per child that we have to have. So we have quite a few staff. I can't tell you the names of all of them, but let me tell you the ones, point out a few. Left end, the gentleman on the left end, his name is Robbie. Ravi is our on-site director. He's in charge of everything at the home for me. He takes care of staffing issues, kid issues, financial issues, food issues. He's kind of the man in charge there. That's Ravi. The gentleman on the other end in the white shirt, his name is Dara. Dara is our tutor. We brought him in specifically to do tutoring for our children. And I'll get into a little bit in a minute as to why we need a tutor, but he was a retired school teacher in Cambodia. We were lucky to find him. He's done a tremendous job coming in. He works 6 days a week, all day long for us, doing nothing but tutoring our children. So he does a good job. Now, all the ones in the middles with the orange shirt are our staff. We're very lucky in our staff at Hannah's Hope. Our staff, we strive to have, number one, every one of our staff, we want to be a Christian. Okay? That's an important fact that we try to reach because it's the influence on the kids. And we're lucky enough that every one of them are Christians. Our tutor, Dara, is the only one who is not a Christian. The rest of them are all Christians. Actually, in Siem Reap, the church is 5 minutes from the home. And at the church location, they also have what is called the International Bible Institute, which is a Bible instruction facility that is overseen by the Bear Valley Church of Christ out of Colorado. And they run a school out of there. So, and they allow girls to go to their school. So almost every one of our females actually have went through the International Bible Institute curriculum to get a degree from there. So they're all Christians. They're all well versed in the Bible. So we're extremely lucky. Actually, 2 of our staff are the wives of the directors at the International Bible Institute. The second orange shirt from the left, that is the preacher from the Siem Reap Church of Christ. That's his wife. So we've got a very good slate of staff that we count on, which better influences our children. So part of our needs is taking care of the physical needs of our children. Kids are kids are kids. So you've got to take care of what they need. We provide them a home, we provide them food, we provide them clothing, but we give them not just a structure to live in. We give them a home. We give them a family. So think of a family with 45 children. That's literally what we have. So in our children, I put a note on there, our children are growing up, and after nearly 11 years, it's been interesting to watch the growth of our children. This little girl here, So Clean is her name. She actually came to us a little later in life. We didn't get, some of them we get real young, like David. Some of them we get a little older. She came to us later in life. Beautiful young lady. So, providing for the physical needs for our kids, we count on the generosity of you. And it's because of congregations like you that we're able to take care of the physical needs of our children. It allows us to do things, Christmas gifts, food, clothes. We try to give them enjoyment in life that every kid gets. Even things that a lot of Cambodian kids don't get. We take them to the movies. We took them to a water park about a year ago. They opened a water park in Siem Reap, so Danielle and I happened to be over there, so we loaded them all up and we carried them to a water park. Never been to a water park. Most of them didn't have a clue how to swim. Interesting experience for me, trying to keep up with 45 kids at a water park. Luckily, we all had the same color T-shirt, so that helped. But we did a great job, and the kids had a blast. Health needs. We take care of their health needs. The country of Cambodia, for a child up until age 16, the Cambodian government will take care of their medical needs for the most part. It's not real extensive, but for what we need, they do a good job, and we're thankful for the government over there for that help. But we also have the nursing school from Harding University. Nearly every summer, they send a contingent of nursing students over, and they do physicals for our children. Check them up, make sure they're doing well, and do an overview of their health, which we really do appreciate that. And this summer, because of COVID, we didn't get that. Which is, I hate, but it's 2020. It's an interesting year. You see the boy in the yellow shirt, Ratnack. You see he's leaned over a bicycle tire. Ravi does a good job in training our young men to work on bicycles. Bicycles as a mode of transportation in Cambodia are valuable, not only for the children, but for the adults also. They get around on a bicycle. Cambodia there's bicycles everywhere, bicycle repair shops everywhere. So our young men are learning how to repair bicycles, and which is here again a very valuable benefit, because the roads, most of the roads are dirt, most of them are rocky and bumpy and not good. So we eat up bicycles quick. 45 kids, bad roads, you go through a bicycle fast. So you try to patch it up and keep it as long as possible. Okay, there's a picture from the water park. As I said, we took them to the water park. We try to give them the general activities that most kids want to do as they grow up. I'll tell you a little story about the water park. We have water parks all over this country. Big fancy slides and wave pools and all kinds of neat stuff to go play on. Cambodia's a little bit behind. When they do the wave pool, they have to shut down the slides because their pumps aren't big enough to pump enough water at the same time. So only one ride can go at a time, because so it's interesting. But the kids had a great time, as you can see on the face of Knack as he comes out of the slide. How much of a great time they had. We're also, as I mentioned, the Angkor Wat Temple system. We're only about 7 miles from our home to the Angkor Wat temples. Our children often go out to the temples. Usually if they want to do a picnic or have a party, they'll load up and they'll take them out to the temple systems. Being Cambodians, they don't have to pay an entry fee. If you go to Cambodia and visit the temples, you'll pay an entry fee. Cambodians don't pay an entry fee, and they go out there for picnics and parties, which is a good place to go visit. Emotional needs. As I said earlier, kids are kids no matter what country they come from. So those of you who have raised children, you've went through the ups and downs, the emotional roller coasters of kids, the problems with friends, the problems with school, the problems with siblings. We have the same issues. You kind of got to sit with them, go through their ups and downs, and think of the sibling rivalries and the sibling arguments and the sibling fights, and you've got 45 siblings. So it gets challenging. But all the issues that children have growing up, we deal with. Ravi does a great job. We have one of our board members that lives in Cambodia. His name's Panat. He lives in Battambang. He runs a program over there for Christians, and he helps to oversee some of those if it gets too complicated. But the emotional needs we take care of and try to handle them. Chores. Our director Ravi does a great job with our children into making sure they all know and understand the need to do their chores. Ravi schedules them they do their own laundry, they help with the cooking, they help with dishes, they help with cleaning the building. They all have a set list of chores on the board. It helps them to develop not only a good work habit, but the idea of responsibility. It helps them to take pride in their home. And this is all handled because Ravi is tremendous in helping these kids realize the benefit of doing chores. You can see Knack, he's repairing a door up top. Looks like he's using a grinder. Bottom right corner, we had to replace a drainage pipe this past year, and so I called Ravi and I said, go out and find me a contractor to replace, and we're talking about a drain pipe that's a 12-inch concrete pipe, okay? It's not just a simple little pipe. I said, call a contractor and see what he can charge us to do this pipe work. Ravi called me back and he said, just buy the pipe, we'll take care of it. So he sent me the videos, and he had all the young men digging trenches and laying concrete pipe. And they did a great job. They did a tremendous job. And so our children are taught that it's necessary to have jobs, to have chores, and to take care of their home. Spiritual needs, primary. The main thing we got to do is take care of their spiritual needs. In 2019, this was one evening we had 3 of our young ladies that were baptized, and so that's a picture of them. All of our children attend the Siem Reap Church of Christ, and they all have an active role in the church. They're not just the Hannah's Hope kids that come in and sit on the back and do nothing. They all have a very active role in our church. Many of our older children are baptized, but they all take a part. They take part in class. They take part in socials. They take part in everything that goes on. Go ahead. This is a picture of the church family that was made. This is the front of the church building in Siem Reap. And if you look through there, you'll realize that a big chunk of the church is Hannah's Hope's children. But the church family has taken on the children as part of their family. They take care of them. They look out after. They watch out after them. And they let them take part and be involved in the church. Our young men are very active in the church. The song leading now is usually done by our young men. The scripture reading is our young men. The technology, the overhead projector is run by our young men. So our young men are given a role. Our young ladies are given a role. Very quick, when they get a little bit of knowledge, we put them into classrooms with the little kids, and we let them start helping out and teaching. So our children are very active in the local church. Church camp. Every year, the country of Cambodia does a Church of Christ countrywide church camp. Every Church of Christ in Cambodia is invited, and they vary from different parts of the country that they go to do this. This year, they went down, but outside of Phnom Penh. But most of our children will all attend the church camp. It's a 3-day camp. They all travel down to it, and I said most of our children will attend it. And it's a great learning experience. They train song leading. They train scripture reading. All the things that people need to learn to do at church. They do it at church camp. And it is directed and ran almost totally by Cambodian people. There's usually a few American missionaries that will go in, but most of it is done by the Cambodians. They pretty well handle everything themselves. Educational needs. Our kids go to public school in Cambodia. To go to public school in Cambodia, you've got to have a few things. One, you've got to have a birth certificate. Two, you've got to have the money to buy a uniform. Most of our kids that come from the villages don't have either one of those. Most of our children, if they're out in the villages when they're born, they never get a birth certificate. So when we pick them up, we've got to go get them a birth certificate. So that means some of our birthdays are educated guesses. But we got to get them a birth certificate, and we provide them the uniform so we can get them started in school. Our tutor, I remember I told you I was going to tell you a little bit more about him. Since our kids, when they come to us, usually don't have what they need to go to school, they're behind. They're usually behind. So we've got to try to get them caught up as much as possible. That's our job of our tutor. The kids go to school. Half of them go in the morning, half of them go in the afternoon, 6 days a week. The ones that go in the morning, in the afternoon they sit with the tutor. The ones that go in the afternoon, the mornings they sit with the tutor. So, and the tutor has done a tremendous job getting them up to speed. The little girl on the left, on the right side, Han, she's standing there holding an award. She gets a lot of academic awards in school. She does extremely well. Han, to tell you a little bit more about her, she actually was an alternate on the national soccer team. So she's done very well. She loves to play soccer. And she called me one evening, and she knows a little English. And she called me one evening and asked me, could she go to Singapore? And I said, Singapore? Why do you want to go to Singapore? And she said, well, the national soccer team's going to Singapore, and they've invited me to go. So I told her she could go. But she's done extremely well. And our kids do, as I said, we do everything we can to get them up through school. A memorial. We have a memorial bench at the home where we post the names of people who remember Hannah's Hope in a memorial. That one is a lady by the name of Dot Dowdy who passed away last year that we had put on the bench as a memorial. So, and that helps with our needs. So every time somebody remembers us, it helps out. Anybody wants to go to Cambodia? We would love to have you visit. The kids would love for you to visit. It's a long trip, and I understand, and right now with the virus, it's a hard trip. It's almost an impossible trip. But when you can go and visit at our home, we'll let you do something. Here's me, and I'm helping cook. Don't ask me what I'm cooking. But I was helping cook. If I remember right, I think it was snails. I didn't eat, but I did cook. So if anybody ever does want to go to Cambodia or has a reason to be in that part of the world and wants to spend a couple of days in the home helping out, we can always find work. Raising 45 children, there's always needs. 45 kids in a house, you tear things, you break things, you wear things out constantly. Vehicles we go through. In that country, if you buy a vehicle, the tax on a vehicle is 100%. So if you buy a $20,000 car, that would be $20,000 here. Over there, it's $40,000. So it's not cheap to provide vehicles. Ravi wants us to build a library over there, and that's kind of in our plans right now, is to build a library for the home. Motorcycle that's mentioned there, I actually bought the motorcycle about 2 months ago. Over there, one of the ways of transportation is a vehicle called the tuk-tuk. It's basically a little wagon that's towed behind a motorcycle. You can put, it's seats for 4 with little kids. You can put 20. A little bit facetious, but they're small because a little 90cc scooter pulls a trailer. You can squeeze between traffic. You can get around easy. You can park them anywhere. We actually have 2 at the home. So when I'm over there, that's what I use to get around most of the time, instead of the van or the truck. So. I said I'm going to leave some brochures in the back, so if you want to know more, we have a Facebook page, we have a website. There's all kinds of ways to help us out. Best way is just pray for Hannah's Hope. Give us your prayers, and that will be the best thing possible. You know, we're all told to go into the world and preach, and we've always got to find ways to broaden the word of Christ. As Christians, that's our responsibility. You know, Jonah was told to go to Nineveh and preach to them. And everybody knows the story. But he was told, go to Nineveh and preach. Nineveh was controlled by the Assyrians. And if you look in history about the Assyrians in that time in history, the Assyrians were an evil people. So there was very legitimate reasons that Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh. He had a good reason because he had watched the Assyrians destroy the northern tribes during that time. So he had justification for that, but God told him to go anyway. So he tried to run away, and we know what happened, swallowed by the fish, and we know the story. But Jonah prayed. In that belly of that fish, he prayed. You know, God, if you'll just get me out of this mess, which God got him out of that mess. But he got him out of the fish. He did not get him out of going to Nineveh. So he got out of the fish, but then he was back where he started. God was saying, you got to go to Nineveh. So as Christians, our job is to go. Sometimes going and doing is not what's comfortable and easy and fun. But as Christians, you know, we're told to go. And I see these children based upon where we're going and what's happening. These children can reach out and be a major Christian effect on the people of Cambodia. I mentioned early on the first time I was in Cambodia, which was 2001. There was one Church of Christ missionary in the country at that point in time that I knew of. I kept hearing rumors about another gentleman up in Battambang, but then I never could. But there was one gentleman that was in Phnom Penh at that point in time. That was the extent of the church in Cambodia in 2001. Today, there's church in Siem Reap, there's churches in Battambang, there's churches in Phnom Penh. And we're lucky. I mentioned the wife of the preacher, that young man. His family, there were 6 brothers. 3 of them were preachers. And they were all converted out of Buddhism. So it's making a difference. Our children make a difference. Our children take the holidays on Christmas. They will put together presents and they visit the villages. And they will hand out stuff in the name of the church to the villages. The children make a difference. I do appreciate y'all letting me come here today and to talk. I hope that you've learned something. If you have any questions at the end, ask me. You'll also find I can talk forever about Hannah's Hope and about Cambodia. So, thank you for letting me be here.